So I'm making this video in response to the Paris terrorist attacks that were claimed by ISIS yesterday. I am so indignant and I'm so grieved at the same time. I was up till about 4 o'clock this morning just contemplating what had happened. And while we can be so outraged over these sick animals who kill in the name of their God, nothing is more outrageous to me than those people who sit back, whether they're so-called moderate Muslims, whether they're useful idiots for Islam, whether they're apologists, liberals, saying that this has nothing to do with Islam and this is un-Islamic or it's a misinterpretation of Islam. I cannot stress enough that this has everything to do with Islam. No one has the right to say what has anything to do with Islam except for Muhammad and Allah. Those are the only two. They define what a Muslim is, they define what Islam is, and they define that legal code by which Muslims are supposed to adhere, Sharia law. And for the useful idiots to say that this has nothing to do with Islam or it's a misinterpretation, there should never be any misinterpretation of Islam. It's very simple. All we have to do is look at Muhammad's life, the one man in the Quran that Allah commands all Muslims to emulate. He walked out his faith, he practiced it daily until the very day that he died. He did what was written in the Quran. Now, if we look at the hadith, we can see that Muhammad was a warlord. He declared war on surrounding tribes that he was already in peace treaties with. He butchered them, men, women, children, personally beheading some of them. He raided caravans. He took women as prisoners of war, as the booty of war, Allah says in the Quran. He raped Rayhana and he raped Safiya after executing the husband and the families and the tribes. He sold and traded and gave as gifts sex slaves, black slaves, Jewish slaves to his men and his family members. He chastised people who are Muslims for giving away and setting free their own slaves when he said that you could have given them to your uncle as a gift. He practiced pedophilia with Aisha. He lusted after this little girl when she was 6 years old. Because she was sick, he waited until she was 9 years of age, after he had come back from perhaps raiding some caravans. He called for her. They sent her over, and he raped this child, this 9-year-old little girl, this prepubescent child. And everything that is in the Quran, we don't have to guess. We don't have to try to interpret it or find some deeper meaning or wonder if it's an analogy or a metaphor for something else. We can look at the Prophet Muhammad's life and we can see exactly what he meant when he said that Allah said to slay them wherever you find them. We can see exactly what he meant when Allah said, I have given them to you as booty of war. We can see exactly what he meant when he said, do not take the Christians and Jews as friends, for they are friends of each other. We see this in Paris now. We will see this more throughout Europe. We will see it in the US. We will see it in Canada. And it is because not of the Muslims, not only of the Muslims. They have been doing this for 1400 years. It's never ceased. They've slaughtered over 270 million non-Muslims. That's more than the top 10 most murderous tyrants in history. And yet we still excuse it and apologize for it and look for some deeper meaning. There's no deeper meaning. Muhammad showcased this with his life, and those devout, true Muslims are showcasing it now in places like Paris. They have declared war on the West, on the non-Muslims, on anyone who refuses to bow to Sharia law, convert, or pay jizya. And simply because we want to ignore that they've declared war on us, obviously doesn't mean they're not going to attack. They take this very seriously. We should too. And it's time for us to fight back. And when I say fight back, I mean we need to use the rights that we have before they're stripped from us. We need to speak out. We need to educate others. We need to stand our ground. We need to not be afraid of political correctness or being called warmongers or hate speakers or bigots or racists or Islamophobes. We need to be more afraid of the future that we are giving ourselves and our children and our grandchildren. And it starts right now. There's no more time left. Paris had no time left. But if we want to prevent this from coming into our own country, then we've got to take this seriously, and we have to use our rights that are not afforded to us under Sharia law. So with that being said, I hope that everyone who watches this is just as equally outraged and grieved as I am for those lost in Paris. But this is not to be trivialized. Neither is it to be blown up into something bigger than what it is. It is normal for Islam. By definition, in the Quran, it is good, and it is the way of Muhammad. And since only Muhammad and Allah have the right to define what Islam is and to define what Muslims are, then we have a right and a responsibility to stand against this. I don't care if it's a religion. I don't care if you consider it more of a political ideology. I don't care if you consider it a cult. Labels don't matter when it comes to pure evil. We stand against it. We do not advocate violence. We advocate defense. We advocate using our rights to battle this terrorism that is inherent and part of fundamental Islam. So today I want you to mourn Paris, mourn their loss. But tomorrow I want you to grasp your voice and start speaking out against this, because I'm just one person. I'm just like you. But when there are millions at our sides, then we really become something that can battle this and win without using the same violence that these terrorists use.